Hi, I'm Stacy of Stacy Creates Stuff, welcoming you to week 3 of patching the hole in the barn door. This is my 12-block weekly series, and we're making a great start. Each week, the block has a poem to go with that particular block. So let me get started by reading this week's poem. Night will be here before too long. They stood by the door ajar. And just then they looked above and saw a simplex star. That is our block for this week, the simplex star. It's an easy block to construct, made up of squares, and our old favorite, the half square triangle. This time, that half square triangle will be a different size than what you've made in the past 2 weeks or for the frame. So let's get started. The fabrics that I have chosen for this week's block are the bright yellow and the true blue. And there's also a little bit of the background that's going to be coming in. So for the frame, I am using the orange and this fun fabric that has all sorts of little sayings on it that moms really hate to hear. Like, yes, I can. No, I can't. Mom, all those things. So that's just going to be a fun little fabric. Since I'm using that as the background of the frame, I'm going to use it as sort of the background of this particular little simplex star block. So I've already cut the 3-inch squares that I need. These are for the half square triangles, and they will be paired up with the yellow. Now, lest you panic on my behalf that this is all the yellow that I have another whole bigger piece, so I'm good. But I'm going to see what I can get out of this. And I am choosing to do the alternate block and put the yellow in the center. So not only will I need the 2 3-inch squares to make the half square triangles, I will also need a 2.5-inch square for the center. And that might be all I get out of this piece. Let's see. I am able to get 2 3-inch squares. So that's perfect. So I cut a generous, well, it's about a 3.5-inch wide strip off of the chunk of fabric that I had. Cut the other piece that I need from this, but that'll give me a workable amount to hang on for other blocks. And somehow I managed to record this segment in fast speed with no sound. So from the blue, you are going to cut 4 2.5-inch squares, and these will be for the corners. If you're doing a truly traditional block, you will need a 2.5-inch square of the background fabric for the center. And then I start laying out my block. The 3-inch squares that we cut of the yellow and the background are going to be made into half square triangles. So I am using my quick quarter tool to draw a 1/4 of an inch from each side of the center line, and then I'm going to go and stitch those. So I've sewn my half square triangles and I sewed on the drawn lines, and actually if you look closely, I have sewn just to the inside towards the center of each line, and that just gives me a little bit more, when I press this open, a little bit more area in which to trim this down to the correct size. So if you, when you're going to trim, or having some issues having a square that's big enough, sew more towards the center. All right, then I'm going to just cut these apart. You can do that with a rotary cutter, or you can use a pair of scissors. I'm going to get my little ruler out. You do not have to be precise in your cutting. See, that's one's bigger than the other. It's okay. The important thing is that you do not slice through your stitches, and that you slice all the way through. All right, I'm going to go take these to the iron and press them towards the yellow. Be right back. All right, here are my half square triangles, and now I'm going to trim them up. I'm using the 45-degree angle line on my ruler, and I am aligning that with the seam that goes through. And then these are going to be trimmed down to 2.5 inches. So I want to make sure as I'm placing my ruler that I have fabric either at or past the 2.5 inch mark on the ruler. I do. And I can trim off that side. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it in one direction. There is another 45-degree angle going in the opposite direction. This was our cut edge there, so I want to align that right where the intersection is. On my ruler, it's at the 7-inch mark. It could vary on yours, so you want to look for the line. Okay, back to this end. Now I have 2 cut sides. And so this was the first side that we cut, so that should come to the 2.5 inch. I have my 45-degree along there. Just a little bit I need to trim off of that. And then this last edge here. So again, 2.5 inches there, straight across the top, straight across the bottom. And it looks like on this one, it's pretty much just taken off the dog ear and a teeny tiny little bit. So I'm going to trim up the rest of these. All right, it's time to lay out the entire block. So we have our dark corner, star point, dark corner, star point, center, star point. There we go. And you can see my background fabric is going every which way. And remember that there is the option that you could use a background fabric for your center. That is how the block is traditionally done. But I really just wanted to emphasize the star, so I am making my center the same color as the star points. We're going to sew this together in rows, a total of 3 rows. All right, I'm back with my 3 rows sewn together. And just so that you know, the top and the bottom row are exactly the same. It just gets flipped around. So always double check before you sew your rows together that indeed the 3 rows make the star and you don't have anything going in the wrong direction. It can happen. So always good to double check before you sew the next part. Now we're just going to go ahead and sew our rows together, and I have pressed everything towards these solid squares, the corners and the center. So these are pressed out towards the corners and these seams are pressed in towards the center. That way I can nest my seams. All right, let's go sew these together. And here is the Simplex star. So you can see that I was able, because of nesting the seams, to pull them apart and then press them in opposite directions as I go across. You can press your seams any way that you desire. Some people like to press them open. Some people like to press them all to one side and call it a day. You do you. It's perfectly fine. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and lay out the entire block. So I have my bottom row from the frame and the top row, which is exactly the same, and my side pieces. And just as we've done before, I just need to attach these to the center here. I'm going to be pressing towards the outer, towards the rectangle here, and then I'll be able to nest these seams. This time I have pressed these inward. So let me go ahead and sew those together. And remember, there's a whole video tutorial on how to construct the frame for our blocks, and that is the starter video. Let's sew this together and finish off our block. I have my 12.5-inch square ruler that I'm going to use to square up my block. Now, in my excitement to complete the block, I forgot to square up my center square, but you know what? I think it worked out just fine. So I have my ruler centered on and aligned so that I am, well, we'll come in here, it's a little easier, 3 1/4 inches from the sides, and still it's 3 1/4 inches here as well. It's just, this is the 1/2 inch extra of the 12.5-inch ruler. I've already pressed the block, so that made it nice and flat, or as flat as it will be. I hope you will participate in making a block or all 12 for the Patching the Hole in the Barn Door series. At the end of the series, I am going to show you at least 3 different ways that you can set these blocks to make anything from a lap size quilt up to a queen size. If you would like each week's instructions emailed to you, simply use the link in the description below to join my email list. And don't worry that we've already started this series. If you join the email list while the series is still ongoing, I will catch you up via email. And if you are watching this video after I have completed the 12 block series, you can still join the email list, and I will send out the instructions 1 week at a time. All of the videos for this series are in their own playlist, and you can reference any of the past ones at any time. If you are enjoying this series, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and join me as I explore creativity. Whether it be quilting, embroidery, eventually some more knitting, this series comes out weekly and premieres at 8 p.m. Eastern Time each week here on YouTube. In between that time, I have a weekly vlog that I post, as well as tutorials on, well, could be anything creative. That's it for today. I will see you next week.